says we're live.
I know, but there we are.
Oh, there we go.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome
Yes, we're
to
live.
June. I know, apparently, I don't know how to work on this thing anymore. So, we are live. We're going to be talking about the upcoming astrology for June 2024. I'm Starlene, and this is Mark. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm brooding over my failed cicada predictions.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed in that too. I haven't seen any cicadas down here in South Florida.
I guess they're saving it all up for one punch, I guess.
Maybe, I don't know. That's well, you know what? Maybe they'll come out a little late. So we're going to talk about June. Oh my gosh. If you have an overall for June, what would you say is the most exciting thing that's going on with us in June?
So for actual June, I guess it would be probably Mars entering Taurus, where it will almost immediately square Pluto, kind of in the second week of May. But then really the big energy is at the very end of the month, when Saturn and Neptune are both going to station within like 4 days of each other, both in the sign of Pisces. About 3 days of each other. So I think that's going to be, if you only have 2 seconds to watch this, I'd say full steam ahead for right now. Once we get into the second week of May, then things in theory I'm sorry, June. Will slow down a little when Mars enters Taurus, but then things just get really science fiction, freaky, weird, full on Pisces energy the end of the month and beginning of July, with Saturn and Neptune standing so close to each other. That's going to be a lot of Pisces energy.
Yeah. When do Saturn and Neptune, what are they, conjunct with each other?
They're not really conjunct yet. That's like at the very, when we get to the very end of the year, they start getting around that 10-degree area. I think they're at 12 degrees apart right now. Yeah, well, I mean they're close, but I guess by the end of this month they'll get close. But then once they start retrograding, Saturn's going to back away. They get within 10 degrees by the end of this month. They're within 10 degrees of orb, which will be felt, but I mean it's not like what we have next year and early 2026. And Saturn and Neptune are really not going to be exact, like partile conjunct. Is partile the right word? I don't think that's the right word. They're not going to be exactly conjunct until they hit 0 Aries, but they're going to be very well within orb. Like once we get into next year, that and right. I mean, right now we're kind of just getting the like everyone is feeling the Neptune at 29 Pisces, even if they don't understand what it is. I can see pretty much everyone's getting their fill of that, I think. But once Saturn starts moving in there next year, then that's just going to be another level of strange added to the equation.
So just a little history thing here, because not much history, but Neptune moves so slow. For anybody that doesn't know, Neptune takes forever to go around the zodiac, and its path is more elliptical than the inner planets. So some signs it stays a little bit longer than others. And Neptune has been in Aquarius in Pisces since when? Is it 19?
Spring of 2011 is when Neptune first entered Pisces, but then it did the thing where it retrograded back into Aquarius, and then I think it was like 2012 before it entered.
Yeah,
because I think that the first day of Neptune in Pisces was the Fukushima thing.
Interesting.
Yes, it was maybe not that exact day. It was very super close to that exact day. That was the first major event of Neptune and Pisces.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Neptune, I wrote it down. I'm going to look to see where I put it. But Neptune only moves about on average 24 minutes in a day. Is that right? In a day. But of course it goes retrograde and such.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So it doesn't actually, that's just an average, but it doesn't actually, always move direct, as we know. So that back and forth that it hit multiple times through the axis of, or well, not the axis, but the point of Aquarius and Pisces. I'd imagine it probably did a few times before it actually meandered on its way.
Yeah. So like Neptune entered Pisces on April 4th of 2011. Then it re-entered Aquarius on the first week of August 2011, and then entered Pisces for good in February of 2012.
Wow. So I looked up Fukushima. It was March 11, 2011. So you said April something?
Yeah. You know what? I had that backwards. That was Uranus was at 29 Pisces when Fukushima happened. Neptune entered Pisces less than a month later. April 4th of 2011, Neptune entered Pisces, but on March 11th, 2011, that was the last 2 days of Uranus at 29 Pisces. So that was the for historical purposes, that was the Uranus at 29 Pisces, and then the Neptune at 0 Pisces followed about 3 weeks after that.
Wow. And that's wild, because you don't always have those outer planets making these aspects, and when they do, I mean, obviously things stir, things are shifting. Do you have any outside of I can't even say the name right, cicada predictions? Do you have any thoughts of what it might be what we're looking forward to with Neptune entering into Aries? I mean, do you feel like there will be any major shifts on?
So I've noticed, this probably always happens, but I've noticed this much more the last 5 years or so, that at these when the outer planets are changing and things, that when they're changing signs, or there's really big energies that like it attracts events, like people knowingly or unknowingly are drawn to these big energy things. So like I'm already seeing like all kinds of like, and I can't even recall most of them off the top of my head, but I'm already seeing like all kinds of big things planned for like late June, early July. Like the first presidential debate is like June 27th or something. It's like the day of the Saturn station, or within a day of the Saturn station.
Oh
And just
man.
like 5 days from the Neptune station. And I know I saw like 5 things in a row one day that were planned like right in between like June 27th and July 2nd. That was big. It was like, man, it's like a magnet. Like things are just attracted to those big energies, even if the people planning them, even if they know or don't know that that's when these big energies are. I just think just things are just going to get really strange, just because
Yeah.
when a planet stations for a week on either end, at least a week on either end, like that energy is really prevalent. So having two outer planets, both in the sign of Pisces, stationed within like 4 days of each other. So there's considerable overlap of those energies, because before we're done with the Saturn station energy, the Neptune station energies coming in, and both of those being in Pisces. I mean, it's just going to get really um, it's just going to get really strange. A positive thing I have noticed is that I think a lot of people are being able to like their manifestation skills are getting better, and they're able to
Mm.
use their intuition better, and I think they're able to sort through clown world a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I think I kind of expected it would probably lean more towards the opposite, but people do seem to be maybe figuring things out a little better as to what's going on. So that's a positive thing that I've kind of noticed. And then another fun thing of Neptune at 29 Pisces is just like when you're out in public, like you see people just like they're just completely out of their bodies for it's like they're downloading information. Like they'll just stop, like if you're at the grocery store or something, it's like somebody would just be stopped for like 30 minutes, just like, and it's like, oh, I recognize that they're getting a download, or they're getting like their subconscious is working so hard that like their physical body can't move. I've noticed this a lot the last. I think Neptune hit 29 Pisces probably, let's see, early May. So I think that's probably, so about 4 weeks ago, Neptune hit 29 Pisces for the first time in our lifetime. No one's ever lived through this degree of, no one who's alive. I don't want to say no one who's alive now has ever lived through Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces.
Right.
Last time
Right,
it had happened during the Civil War.
Yeah. I now that you mentioned that, I actually do remember talking about Fukushima. I don't know how you say it. When it happened, because you did mention the Uranus and the Neptune movement, and yeah, we might have had talked about that on a show or something. But yeah, I do remember that going on, and that was kind of crazy. I think that was my first kind of awakening to how powerful that the outer planet movements can be, and how much that can really be disturbing. I've had Uranus on my ascendant in a partial conjunction for like I think 82 years now. It feels like where Uranus just kind of like, I'm flying by the seat of my pants,
I'll tell you what, you really lose like I don't want to say you lose focus. Your focus intense when you have like the really big like outer planet like conjunctions or square like the really big aspects from the outer planets, like you're in a different world than everyone else. It is not the same as Mercury sextile your Venus or something. It's a different world.
Right. And it's super powerful too. So knowing your own chart's obviously a good idea. But if you know where your angles are, meaning the first, the 7th, the 10th house cusps, I mean, even the 4th, but if you know where those are, what degrees they are, and you can pay attention to, because they move so slowly, the outer planets, when they're hitting one of those angles, that can be very changeable for you. So right now I've got Pluto on my midheaven and I've got Uranus on my ascendant. So things have been shifting for myself. I mean, I don't view things as bad or good in this sense, because I feel like the changes are good in that sense, because change is consistent, continually moving, progressing. I guess I have that kind of mentality, but the changes can be dramatic if you're not grounded with yourself. They can be just destabilizing too, obviously, such as like crazy stuff happening with Uranus, and that does happen, where things change quickly. You don't even expect it to, but it just kind of happens. And I can say the last year or so that Uranus has been really on my ascendant, maybe moving a few degrees away or whatnot. But I think when it turned retrograde last time, I know it's direct now, but when it turned retrograde last time, it was almost on my ascendant, almost exactly on my ascendant. It might have been in the same degree, and then it went retrograde. It didn't quite hit it. So the first actual hit crossing over was the 26th. That was only 4 days ago from when we're recording this now. So that was the first time, but I'm getting, when it goes retrograde, I get it again and then again. So and I feel like already it's been on my ascendant forever, but I think that's important to kind of pay attention to these outer planets, because they can indicate a lot of different shifts and changes within your own life, on personal level, but also, when they're changing signs too, that does kind of shift around for different experiences that people have too. So this Neptune moving into Pisces is moving out of Pisces into Aries, kind of, I just wonder what is that going to bring? Because Aries being, I don't think Neptune's too happy in Aries, like Neptune having this, idealistic energy, and Aries having this, I'm going to go and charge ahead kind of. I don't know if they mesh too well together.
Right. And two, I mean, we're going to have, so like, starting in a year from now, a little bit over a year, like mid 2025 through mid 2026, like the outer, like Pluto will be in Aquarius for good by then. But the other three outer, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune are all going to change signs in the next year and a half. So Saturn, so we're going to have Saturn, which also probably doesn't function that well in Aries. And then Neptune, which probably does not function that well in Aries. They're both going to be in Aries. And Uranus is going to be, which does function well in Gemini, is going to be into Gemini. So we're going to have versions that we're going to, out of the 4 outer planets, we're going to have 2 in Aries and then the other 2 in air signs. So there'll be versions of trines and sextiles, conjunctions there between the 4 outer planets. But from where, the last few years, other than when Pluto's jumped into Aquarius, we've had like sextiles and trines and stuff between the outer planets in earth and water signs, but we're going to be flipping that to fire and air here like in about a year. It's going to the changeover is going to start, I guess, in a year. So that would definitely be interesting. Uranus and Neptune and Aries have interesting, historical type thing, and Uranus and Gemini also. I think there's battlings in the subconscious that come out into the forefront. I think would be a possible summation of some of those. Yeah, there's been lots of like war type stuff and things like that historically with that lineup.
That's interesting. When does Uranus move into Gemini? I don't think I know that date. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, July 7, 2025. That's what the program says.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Uranus does move back into Taurus again after that.
Right.
But then, yeah. So then the late April of 2026 is when Uranus moves into Gemini, like for its
permanently
8-year cycle.
Yeah, it's very interesting to look at those patterns. Have you looked back in history to look at when Uranus was in Gemini last, if there was any, because you said Uranus in Gemini can be better than Uranus in Aries maybe. Have you looked to see what was going on in history when Uranus was in Gemini before?
I think World War II was.
Oh yeah,
Uranus.
Actually 41, 42. Yeah, I just clicked it. Wow,
so that was I just have to point this out because I see misquotes a lot on this. So like I don't want to turn this into a tangent on World War II, but World War II was going on for a long time before the United States entered.
That's true. Yeah.
So I've seen several places where people said that 1945, that's when the United States entered World War II. That was like Pearl Harbor was December 7th, 1945, I believe. But like 1941 when World War II actually started, and it was it was like Russia versus Germany in Japan, and then we came in like after things had been going for a while.
So I went back a little bit even further in history looking just now. And funny enough, not funny, but the last time before World War one time when Uranus was in Gemini, actually it's two before. So there was one in the mid 1800s. I don't know what was going on in the world then, but the one before then was in 1775. I wonder what was going on then. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. it's interesting to see.
The French Revolution happened with Pluto and early Aquarius, and that was also Pluto and Aquarius was also right after the American Revolution. I think the aftermath of the Revolutionary War was Uranus in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking at the Uranus in April 8th, 1775, at 0 degrees Gemini, and Pluto was 26 degrees Capricorn then. So if we go ahead a year, it's probably exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Well, maybe 2 years or something, but yeah. Point being, 1777. Yep, that's exactly what's going on. You have Uranus in Gemini, early Gemini, and Pluto entering into Aquarius. So it's so interesting how you can look at things. I mean, I hope we don't have any more wars, but we're humanity, so that's not going to work. Unfortunately, that's how. Exactly. That's kind of how things happen. But hopefully, it won't be terrible, and it'll bring about some kind of good change. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's start talking about what's coming up in June. I'm going to put the aspects we're talking about and try to keep up with this on the bottom of the screen so you can see what we're talking about. If you're, wanting to pay attention to dates, it is the date first. As you see on the bottom, June 2nd. And then if there's multiple aspects, I just put a hyphen in the middle. So you'll see that Jupiter trine Pluto at 8:12 p.m. in Gemini Aquarius on June 2nd, and Mercury sextile Neptune at 11:57 Taurus Pisces. What are you feeling about Jupiter trine Pluto and Mercury sextile Neptune?
Right. So Jupiter,
not too bad.
Oh yeah, no, I think I had left the that Gemini Aquarius trine there is going to be at like 1 degree 50 minutes or something like that of like just a hair under 2 degrees is the degrees for Gemini and Aquarius, I believe. Yeah, so like Jupiter is expansion and Pluto is power. So if you've got planets in the low degrees of air signs right now, like your sun, you've got since you've got Pluto on your sun, but you've also got the I think a day or two after this, I think Mercury's going to enter Gemini, so that's going to give us Sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter all in Gemini. So you should be, if anybody out there's got planets in the low degrees of the air signs, you should have a nice lineup at this point, especially if you're like early Libra or early Gemini. I think that for the Aquarius people, probably the Pluto on your sun is probably overwhelming the other things, but you're still at least getting some helpers there. From Jupiter, Sun, Venus in Gemini, and Mercury moving there at that point. So to me, like Jupiter trine Pluto is power plays. So that's where if that's hitting positively in your chart, that's where you kind of carefully and strategically exert your dominance where it needs to be exerted in areas to boost yourself.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it too. And I guess that would go for anybody that has early Aquarius planets or even air signs, right? Because the air signs would be where it would be aspecting the Libra or even the Gemini too. I mean, I always think of Pluto and Jupiter. It could be either way, right? It could be asserting dominance in a domineering type way that's not necessarily good, or you can use it for something positive. Hopefully it's positive.
Right. And I guess just a quick note on Jupiter is I think there's and I've had this belief in the past, which I've figured out was incorrect. Like all Jupiter transits are not necessarily positive. There can be like over exaggeration, just like running rampant over people. Just like you don't want to be like domineering troll that lives under a bridge or anything, scaring children. But pick your spots and put your energy into things that will, benefit yourself and others.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's wise thing to do. And that Mercury sextile Neptune, that's a fairly easy aspect to work through. That I think it might make you a little bit thinking about your mind, and on some level or another, thinking about what your ideal thoughts are in terms of life, kind of putting yourself in a space of tapping into that awareness inside the self that's maybe not always present. The Neptune energy is not always obvious to us, but when we see it, when we look for it, we can see it. So yeah. And then right after June 2nd, we have another one where, like you said earlier, Mercury goes into Gemini. So Mercury's paving the way for everybody, as Mercury likes to do. And then Sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter are all in Gemini at that point. So we're shifting from the Taurus energy that we were experiencing last month, and then we're moving into this Gemini energy. So Taurus energy, like we were talking about, what did you call it? A stop? Is that what you called it? You said it's like a full stop. Like you're just.
Yeah, it's like So like the big stellium of Taurus stuff we had was, slow, gradual growth.
Right.
Is so sometimes the Taurus energy is hard to get moving, but once it gets moving, it's a powerful force to be dealt with.
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah. So we're shifting that energy into Gemini, and Gemini is more, I don't know, it seems a little more chaotic, but a little more curious as well, looking for all the different potentials that are out there.
Yes.
A little
squirrely. Yeah, absolutely. Gemini's more playful, I think, and more communicative and stuff than Taurus is. So the problem with that much Gemini energy is the ability to kind of spin out of control mentally. Just going too many different directions or whatnot, and like Mercury kind of has stuff to do with the central nervous system a little bit. So you want to like not just like totally spin your brain out of control. But if you can take those and keep it, we'll have Neptune at 29 Pisces and Uranus and Taurus and stuff still. So if you can use the outer planet energy to kind of direct the Geminis into a beneficial area and not just be chasing chickens that are running amok, then you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, that makes sense. As we move on the 4th, we actually have a lot of different aspects going on. Mercury trine to Pluto. We have Mercury conjunct Jupiter and Sun conjunct Venus. So we have all these things going on June 4th. It's a lot. It's Mercury energy galore here, and then the Sun and Venus get mixed in it. So I don't know, Mercury trine Pluto and conjunct Jupiter makes me think of maybe spinning in a way that can be somewhat obsessive compulsive, even grandiose, because the Jupiter energy is there, especially if you have planets in early air signs. So what are you thinking about this June 4th here?
Yeah, so obviously that's a lot of energy.
Mental energy.
a lot of mental and verbal energy. but the Sun conjunct Venus, that happens once or twice a year, twice some years. So I mean that's usually a beneficial. That's a feel goodery day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's overall, I think that's pretty pleasant energy. Mercury conjunct Jupiter and Sun conjunct Venus. But then like the Mercury trine Pluto, gives you some in-depth insights into things that you might not normally notice.
Yeah. Does Mercury end up conjuncting Pluto as well, or no? It's not. Oh, it's trining. Sorry. Yeah. Do you ever notice that trines can be somewhat chaotic if they're not expressed in a way that is helpful or good? They can be chaotic and kind of be a little crazy, make things hectic. Do you ever notice that about trines and more trines than sextiles? But it feels like if the energy isn't working for the person, then it can be chaotic.
Yeah. So that's interesting you bring that up. So there's been multiple like tornado outbreaks this year. And I've noticed that I think the two most, or at least two of the biggest ones, have been when there was a Moon Pluto trine, when the Moon was in Gemini and Pluto in Aquarius. It's happened March, and we just had one. So March and May, the day that Mercury was first, the Moon was first in Gemini, making the trine to Pluto and Aquarius. We had big. Did I say earthquakes earlier?
No, you said tornado.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You got Neptune brain.
Brain optional, yeah. Brain optional Thursday. So the Mercury, oh my God. The Moon trine Pluto days in air signs, I noticed, have brought destructive winds because you've got Pluto in air signs. And if you look back at some of the charts of days when there was really big, like huge tornadoes or big tornado outbreaks, that there was that Moon Pluto trine or an air grand trine happening. So that kind of brought the power of the air up to a new level. So just to kind of back up what you're saying with the trines, like yes, there can be too much energy sometime with the trines. And while especially if you're looking at like sports astrology or something, like if you're looking at a game or players, like if there's like a trine to Uranus, like that's something to pick up on for that, that player or that team's chart, because that can really be just kind of like unleashing havoc upon the opposing team or the opposing players too. So I've seen that a lot. Now, like I have a water grand trine in my birth chart, but that's in water, so it's like a little more docile. So probably when I was figuring out my chart and how to use it 30 years ago, I think that was probably like being overtly emotional, and like everything was too much to deal with at the time, until I learned how to corral things a little bit and to get them to work with me instead of me like fighting off waves of emotion every 8 seconds. But yeah, you could
8 seconds.
You can turn those into into positives. but I agree with you. A trine and especially a conjunction does not always mean it's going to be an easy or peaceful transit. Sometimes that will unleash a whole bunch of stuff that you're going to be curtailing. Now, a lot of times, like I disagreed with this when I'd heard this several years ago, so I started paying attention. But I think sometimes with these aspects, you don't get the payoff until afterwards, because sometimes, like at the exact or the initial aspect, it's too much energy. It's like my bad analogy is like trying to cram an entire watermelon down the garbage disposal at one time. But I think once you can catch up to that energy and learn how to wrangle it, then you can get the benefits out of it.
Yeah, that actually makes sense though, because sometimes it's like the initial energy of something, especially if you're talking about outer planets, you get the wave, but then it's almost like the wave kind of slowly disperses, instead of just, and you're still continuing to process whatever is going on in your life. It's not necessarily one event, maybe it's multiple, so that's definitely been my perception as well. But trines seem to be like they can be a little kooky if they're a little intense. I should say it like that. Not kooky is a weird word, but yeah, intense if they're not being utilized in the best way. Yeah. So that is the 4th. We have a couple days break from the 4th to the 8th, and then we get the 8th. So there's no exact aspects, maybe moon aspects, but we're going to talk about the moon here. And then on June 8th, we have Venus square Saturn. And this is in Gemini Pisces, 19 Gemini Pisces. So Venus square Saturn. Gosh, it felt like Venus was just conjunct Saturn.
Yeah.
Venus has moved away. Yeah. Venus square Saturn. I mean, I love Venus and Saturn. I think Venus and Saturn brings about a draw to what is real, important, meaningful. It isn't always easy per se. If you're not really focused on what's real and meaningful, sometimes things can fall away from you, and that's never easy because that's the Saturn influence. But what are you feeling about Venus square Saturn?
Yeah. So to me, like Venus, so Saturn is the outermost planet of those two. So like Venus is never going to dictate to Saturn what it's going to do. Venus is going to suggest to Saturn. So, but when you have Venus square Saturn, to me, that's, what's a proper place to, cut back spending, or to, what's a thing that you have money going out on that you don't need to, or is there a person at your work, or something that is harshing your mellow that you need to straighten out, or disengage from their energy, something like that is kind of the Venus square Saturn. Now too, I mean, like, too, that can be like a bad day at work also, like Venus square Saturn. That can be, or you find you made a mistake or something like that. But luckily the Venus moves so fast that, I mean, that transit exact is at 4:25 in the morning Eastern time. So
yeah.
So just be weird dreams too.
Weird dreams about a real normal reality, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the heck normal is, but
there's no normal.
Oh, that's funny. So then on June 9th, we have Mars going into Taurus. I'm actually excited about this because my Mars is in Taurus, and I'll get to have a Mars return soon. That's why I'm excited about it. And that happens on June 9th, and then Sun squaring Saturn. And that's at Gemini and Pisces, the sun and Saturn. What's up for June 9th? What are you feeling about that day? Well, first off, I should ask you, what do you feel about Mars going into Taurus? So like the energy of Mars and Taurus, I know I have that natally, but I don't think that that's the best placement for Mars. It feels like he's trying to move because Mars wants to move and have energy towards something, but Taurus is like, no, slow down and smell the roses.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's just one of those successions of energies where you have to monitor your energy flow, because like Mars in Aquarius will be really chaotic, and then Mars moves into Pisces, and then it's off in some other reality, and then Mars enters Aries from Pisces, and then it's a million miles an hour, and then goes into Taurus, and it's like someone dropping a brick on the brake pedal, while you're going 80 miles an hour. So there has to be like, you're not going to be able to accomplish the same amount of things or in the same amount of time with Mars and Taurus as you are Mars and Aries. So to me, Mars and Taurus is like, focus on the important things and try to level your energy out so it's not too low at any point, but just keep hammering at the big things, just that, and I like to work on like bigger or longer term tasks with Mars and Taurus, because I know there's more staying power with Mars and Taurus.
That's like a great way to put it, the staying power, because it's like, I always think when I think of Mars and Taurus, I always think of I think of Mars and Saturn. For some reason, they kind of feel similar, where it's like trying to go, but really it's like takes a while to get there. I mean, to me in my brain, I just make that association because I know it's not, Taurus is not Saturn, but it's just that slowly progressing to make something happen in your life, to get to a place that you want to go to, but it takes time to get there, even though there's maybe the desire to move quicker. So yeah, that makes sense.
I think the Mars and Taurus and any Saturn transit, I think the commonality there is think before you act.
That's a good point.
It's like, think what you're doing and then put all your energy into it. Whereas like the Mars and Aries is kind of just
like do.
right. Go and, conquer as many things as as many tasks as you can, and try to, whittle off everything off your list that you can. And then Mars and Taurus is much more focused.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about Sun squaring Saturn? What are you thinking about that? Is that a list day? Making lists?
Is it what?
Yes. List day where you're making lists and lists?
Yes, list of lists of lists. Every day is a list day for me. Yeah, so to me, any kind of square involving Saturn is like what needs restructured. Like what are you doing that needs to be done, but maybe there's shortcuts isn't the right word for Saturn, but what's something that you can organize or set up in a better way so that it functions more properly and is not running amok.
It's not running amok. That's funny.
So, right. Or two, it's like, what can be eliminated? What, what do I not need to do more?
Right. What kind of like extra that isn't. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Saturn cuts away what's not important. And sometimes that's painful. That's why Saturn gets a bad rap.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
So that's June 9th. And of course, Sun square Saturn is a quick aspect because the Sun moves about a degree a day. So that won't be hanging around as long as Mars will be in Taurus. But we move on to June 11th, and Mars makes its wonderful square to Pluto. I don't know. Some of my people I know that have Mars square Pluto, that's an interesting that's an interesting thing in a natal chart, that's for sure. And this does happen at Taurus, 1 Taurus Aquarius. So again, we're getting that strike with Pluto going into Aquarius. I mean, it's moving retrograde at this point, right? Isn't it retrograde at this point?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Going back closer to Capricorn, which it will get there. But what are you feeling about Mars square Pluto? What does that bring to the world?
Right. So like Mars is kind of the Mars is the lower octave of Pluto. So Mars rules Aries, Pluto rules Scorpio. So there's some commonality there. Mars and Pluto do have open communication. So to me that and so Mars is not going to tell Pluto what to do. Mars is going to suggest to Pluto because Pluto moves so much slower. So to me that's a good. So that to me that's the kind of a David versus Goliath thing where like Mars is taking on its oppressor on something that's one way it can play out. It could be batting heads against some corporation you're having a problem with or something, or your credit card company, something where you're having to bash heads with something to straighten it up. Also too, like if you have like some research or detective type work, which would be Pluto, Mars can give that. A Mars square to Pluto can give you that impetus to work on bigger projects or more in-depth things where you're going to need a lot of sustainability and a lot of energy to accomplish the task or the thing you're trying to do. So that's where so of course also with the Mars square Pluto, there's usually some tragic events involved with that because that there is a theme of death there. So I'm sure there'll be some interesting news items that around that few days there. But I think on a personal level, you can use that to tackle some kind of big project or big task or something like that needs done. You can use the Mars to activate Pluto.
Yeah, it's like there is a intense amount of energy with the Mars and Pluto square. That's the kind of what I visualize it as, a fireball of energy just moving and burning intensely. And that can go either direction. Like you said, if it's looking at wanting to accomplish something, you probably have the energy to do it. If it's used in a negative way, it could be destructive as well, because the intensity can be really like a lot. So it's interesting, in the world that we live in. How often does Mars come to aspect Pluto? Probably just a couple of times a year, right? Squares, I think, are more intense than even the conjunction, but probably a couple times a year, I would think, because it takes about 18 months for Mars to go around the zodiac.
It takes close to 2 years for Mars
close to 2 years. Yeah. I'm thinking of Venus.
So
18 months.
I think over a year you get, I think, 4 Mars Pluto aspects. I think you'll probably get a sextile, a square, a trine, and either a conjunction or opposition. You may get 2 sextiles.
Right.
I think it's probably 4 to 5 aspects a year, depending on if it's the year, because Mars goes retrograde for one period every 2 years. So it kind of depends on if it's the year that Mars goes retrograde or not.
Right. If it still goes back in aspects of it. Yeah. So I guess point being is there's not a lot of Mars Pluto aspects. And when they do happen, especially squares, because squares seem to have more intensity than, at least with these 2 planets to me, maybe because they're both intense planets. They're not just, drifting around like Venus, for instance. Yeah. And then when we move on to, so that's June 11th, when we move on to June 12th, we have Mercury squaring Saturn, and that's Gemini Pisces. So again, we're getting this cleaning up the mental thoughts, trying not to go into a negative mindset with it. I think the Saturn energy can sometimes make Mercury very sober-minded, I guess I would think of, but it can be, maybe depressive too, if you're in that mindset. I think the thing about astrology is that, it depends on what's going on in your life at any given time. It's not necessarily what, it's always going to be this way every time this aspect comes around. It's more like, what is going on with you? For instance, when Venus crossed my ascendant just recently and Uranus has been there, my cat passed away, and I wouldn't have predicted, hey, Venus on your ascendant with Uranus is going to be like a great day. It wasn't, obviously. My cat passed. She was 20, but it was a day where I did feel a lot of love, and from the appreciation of my 20-year-old cat. Cats don't usually live that long. That she was in my life, and it gave me a perspective. And I didn't realize this was actually going on that day until I looked a week later. But I was surprised because I've been an animal person forever in my whole life. So there's been multiple animals that have passed away in my lifetime, and they were always like sad and everything. But that one specifically, when she passed, I was so peaceful and felt so calm. And I was like, what was going on in astrology? So I looked back at that exact moment, and I actually, knew the time because she passed in my arms. So I could look back at that exact moment and see, wow, that was right at the time when Venus was on my ascendant with Uranus. So it's interesting. You can't, the planets aren't going to dictate what happens in your life. Point being is they do give you a color of what's going on to whatever event is going on in your life. But yeah, so with that said, what are you thinking about Mercury squaring Saturn? What would you think that would mean to someone's life? Like what it could mean to someone's experience?
Making lists.
Making lists.
Yeah. So to me, Mercury is your mental processes, and Saturn is our 3D reality. So to me, Mercury square Saturn is, what do I need to change? Where can I make adjustments to make, work go better, money flow better? It's like, where can I make adjustments to my 3D reality to make things flow smoother? And of course, that a lot of times that happens because a problem comes up because it's square. Mercury is square to Saturn. But then it's an opportunity to fix something.
Yeah, it gives you a chance to fix something, adjust something, make it better to your 3D reality. That's a good way to put it too. The 3D reality, which is Saturn, that makes sense because it's what's tangible and real. Yeah. So make sure you make your list of cicadas.
Yes.
Yes.
Good day. listing cicadas and name them individually.
And then on June 14th, a couple of days later, we have the Sun conjunct Mercury. This is the superior conjunction of Sun and Mercury, meaning we're halfway between the time when we're going to have the next Mercury retrograde. Yay! So Sun conjunct Mercury. What are you thinking about that? That day, the 14th.
Right. So that's 24 Gemini. So Sun conjunct Mercury in Gemini is going to be like, sharing your true thoughts on things.
That's a good point.
And also, isn't that like Flag Day or something? Isn't that June 14th?
Yeah, I think it is Flag Day, actually. It's either the 14th or the 15th. I think it might be Flag Day. Yep, June 14th.
It is. In fact, it is Flag Day that day. So,
interesting.
Yeah. Wear your flag proudly. Yeah. No, that is interesting that there's just some Mercury conjunction on Flag Day. Whatever your flag may be.
Yeah. Your little crazy flag or American flag, who knows?
Yeah, I dodged that one well, didn't I? So to me, Sun conjunct Mercury in Gemini is, you should be very articulate, as long as that's not squaring something in your chart. Although both of those will be, never mind. I'm going to keep that to myself. Move along.
Oh, yeah. You know what else is June 14, right?
Oh.
Someone's birthday. We don't know this person ourselves, I don't think, but someone else's birthday. 45.
Oh,
that yes. Or not. Yes. I know. I remember that because you know what? It's also our friend Dionysus's birthday too. And yes. I had another friend too. Their birthday's all on that June 14th, which is interesting. So yeah, that'll be an interesting solar return. Do you look at solar returns?
Oh, yeah, religiously. Somewhat religiously. Disorganized religiously. No, we go over our solar return charts fairly frequently.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're interesting.
Sun, Venus, Mercury stellium, I think, with Jupiter also in Gemini. So that should be an interesting solar return chart for anyone with that birthday.
Sun, Venus, Mercury, you said, is going to be right
I think
close to each other.
So Sun at 24. Yeah, Venus is at 26 Gemini. And Mercury, so there's a pretty tight Sun, Mercury, Venus stellium, all within like 2 degrees of each other.
Yeah, that's definite. I mean, it probably makes a midpoint tree with the 3 of them. I mean, at some point it does. That's interesting. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of our political sphere going forward. So yeah, it'll be a good solar return for whoever's birthday falls on that day. Hopefully. So moving on to June, where are we at? June 16th.
Let's move along, please.
Before we get tossed tomatoes.
Yeah. Yes.
So on June 16th, we have Venus squaring Neptune, and that happens in Gemini and Pisces. So these are end degrees of Gemini Pisces. The 29th degree, okay, so you're a 29-degree person because your sun's 29 degrees. Do you notice the 29th degree? I know people say this about the 0 degree a lot, but the 29th degree is also an intense degree of each zodiac sign.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, especially like, I mean, 29 Pisces is, that's the end.
It's
right?
the end.
That's the end. That's
we
the
start over.
359th degree of 360 degrees. That's the last degree before the reset. So yeah, so I think 29, especially like 29 Pisces or 29 degrees of like any of the cardinal signs also, I think are really huge. So yeah, I think those are major thing. I mean, because that's kind of the culmination. That's kind of the culmination of that sign, or 29 Pisces. That's kind of the culmination of the zodiac. And so then, to me, like I think 29 degrees is even bigger than 0 degrees, because 0 degrees is kind of
it's like starting
the newborn, right? That's kind of it's a restart, a rebirth. So I think that's, it's probably a bigger energy. Probably is not the right phrase, but I think it's the culmination of that cycle. And then the 0 degrees is a rebirth, which is full of possibilities and potentialities.
Yeah. And why did you say 29 degrees of cardinal signs is, especially those signs, are intense?
I mean, because those are kind of those are the initiator. Cardinal signs are initiators. And I kind of, I mean, especially like, you just think of like Aries. I think there's a buildup of energy to those cardinal signs, because there's all this initiation, and then like once you get to the end of that, so after every cardinal sign, you start a fixed sign where you can kind of take things and like formalize them or put them into firm placements or something. Like all the things that you initiated during the cardinal signs, you can kind of put into figure out which things you're actually going to work on, what you're actually going to build on. So I think that those 29 degrees of cardinal signs always, and especially like when there's a full moon or something at 29 degrees of a cardinal, it always seems to be a little higher ampage than a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, I will agree about that. Like the 29 degrees seems a little bit more full of the sign that it is in, and then the 0 degrees, it's like you said, it's like a newness. It's almost like the 0 degrees is just learning how to be. It's not quite morphed from the last sign into the next, but the 29th is like the collective of that sign. And of course, 29 Pisces is the end. So yeah, that makes sense. So when we're looking at is it Venus square Neptune at 29 Gemini Pisces? What are you feeling about that one?
Right. So like Venus square Neptune can be, I mean, it can be romance. It can be, Venus is pleasurable things and Neptune is spiritual things. So it can be, it can be excess also because it's a square. So it can be, eating too much of your favorite food, or having too much wine, or it can be excesses also, or overspending on something. So there can be that, but there can also, as much as squares can be a pain in the butt, they can also, squares can unlock potential also.
Right.
So I think having having Venus square Neptune, like I think a lot of times ends up dealing with, your subconscious or hidden feelings, things like that also. So it can be, uh, extravagance is another thing I think that it can be with. um, so
Yeah,
to,
and having
squares require energy.
Yeah, having that 29 degrees too. Maybe there's even a culmination of energy coming with the collective of Venus making this, appearance with Neptune, Gemini, Pisces. Venus is a busy person planet this month, especially mid-month. I was looking at all of the aspects. I said Venus, but I meant to say Neptune, because Venus and Mercury are connecting with Neptune. They're all squaring. So there is not just the Venus energy to it that we're talking about that happens on the 16th, but on the 17th, it also, more of this comes into play, and Mercury also makes a conjunction to Venus. So let's go to the 17th so we can look at those aspects. Venus moves into Cancer. Mercury squares to Neptune in Gemini and Pisces, and then Mercury enters into Cancer, and then that's when Mercury and Venus could make a conjunction to each other. So there's this big shifting of things, not just with these squares that are going on, but also with the planets moving into Cancer on this day, and also connecting with Neptune, because we were just talking about Venus squaring Neptune, and now it's Mercury squaring Neptune. So, yeah, they're paving the way for Neptune to make its way into Aries. Yeah. So what are you feeling about the 17th?
Yeah. So I think with that, the Sun, Mercury, Venus stellium in Gemini, they're all going to go square Neptune and then enter Cancer and start working on the trine to Neptune. Because once they get to the end of Cancer, 3-4 weeks from here, these planets that are squaring Neptune will all be making trines to Neptune. Yeah, so to me, I guess Gemini to Cancer is another one of those slow down things where, because Gemini is very much the kinetic energy. Even if you look, like butterflies are ruled by Gemini. Even if you look at the way that they fly, it's like they don't fly like,
like one
they
direction.
don't like glide like a bird. Yeah, they're chaotic. They're all over the place. So I think anything moving from Gemini to Cancer is a, slowing down to, focus a little bit on things and a little less, you've run around for a month now. It's, you're ready to be at home. That to me is kind of the Gemini to Cancer transition. It's like, I'm tired and I want to be at home, so I just ran around for the last month. So again, you're going to have Venus and Mercury entering Cancer there. That's going to be, nurturing thoughts of, about your home life, creature comforts, family stuff. It's kind of a, and I have an insane thought to share in a second too. What, like insane thought, like 2,423,017.
Did you put it on your list?
Yes, I have a list of my insane thoughts.
That's great.
Don't pay any attention to me. Mercury. So Mercury square Neptune. Here's another little free Astro 2.0 tidbit for the home viewers. Like Mercury square Neptune at 3:41 in the morning, that's going to be a disturbance in your sleep cycle. So usually, like, I noticed this a lot when you have like the moon or Mercury or something square to Uranus, Pluto, Neptune in the middle of the night, or Saturn even too. That's like unsettling dreams, nightmares, whatever, because there's stirrings going on in your subconscious overnight. And when you have those squares from the inner planets to the outer planets, you're not awake or conscious to be analyzing those thoughts or keeping them at bay at that point. So they just kind of run rampant. Because like this has happened like hundreds of times, like where I see these aspects overnight, and then like you get on your social media thing in the morning and everyone's talking about, oh, I slept like hell and I had nightmares and everything. And you can really trace, I mean, everyone's got their own things happening in their chart, but I just noticed a lot more things of people saying they slept poorly and had nightmares when they're, Sun square Neptune, Mercury square Saturn, like that kind of stuff happening like in the middle of the night. That kind of the overflow of the subconscious psychic muck that didn't get filtered out the previous day kind of comes out in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So insane thought number 12 million, whatever. I hate how our holidays are set up. I think they're all set up at stupid times. Like why is Father's Day in June and Mother's Day is in May? I think that's stupid. I think Father's Day should be during Leo season and Mother's Day should be during Cancer season.
I agree. That's a good point.
Because just a little common sense would like fix a lot of this stuff. Because like there's so many like things already going like in May, April, like there's graduations and events and things like that. It just seems like they just crammed all these like holidays in there around. Like they should like restructure some of these things with the correct season for like Mother's Day should be during Cancer season. Because Cancer rules the mother, rules home life. Make it the first week of sun, leave it away from 4th of July, but make it the third week of June, and make Father's Day. Yeah, make that during because there's no holidays during August, so let's move Father's Day to like August.
Yeah,
like when the
that would
sun's
be better. I think we need to petition people. I don't know what people, but we should do it.
Call your senator.
Call your representatives.
Yes. This crazy guy on YouTube says you need to change your calendar.
We're changing the national holidays. That's it.
Yes. By my decree.
And Mercury conjunct Venus too. I mean, that it's 0 degrees of Cancer. It makes me think that there is also creativity that can come out of that energy, the creative mind, Mercury being the mind and Venus being the attraction of beauty, maybe some kind of creative something you might want to do, even specifically revolving around your shell, your home, your whatever your little shell looks like, because we all have one. That's also part of it.
Your tiny house.
Huh?
Your tiny house.
Yeah, your tiny house, whatever. just make it happen. And then we move on to the 20th, and then we have the sun squaring Neptune. So the sun's getting involved in all these wonderful squares to Neptune in Gemini, Pisces, and then the sun moves into Cancer. So of course, after the square to Neptune, it just says bye, and it goes into Cancer. So what's going on in your mind about the 20th? Oh, I put the 20th.
So the sun square to Neptune, I mean, we have 2 of those a year. So to me, those are, where's their disillusionment? Where is their, Like Sun square Neptune is that feeling like in the background that you know something's off, but you can't quite place what it is. That to me, that's like Sun, Mercury square Neptune, Moon square Neptune. All those kind of fit into that. Like something's off, but I can't quite place it.
Yeah. Would you think that it would bring to light something that's off? You know, because Neptune has the way to kind of make you a little foggy. Would you think it would the sun would bring to light something, or you think it would just feel like something is just not quite adding up?
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I mean, I think that the sun hitting anything could bring, it could bring some sort of, I'm going to choose my words wisely here, some sort, potentially anyways. It could definitely bring some sort of deception or something like out into the light. It could shine light on something that's.
It's interesting too. All these squares are happening right when Neptune is in the very last degree of the zodiac at 29 of Neptune. So, it feels like the outer planets keep getting, trampled on with these these inner planets. And I know that's always going on, but it feels like it's been a lot of that lately, like the outer planets. Like last month, everything was going over Uranus, and now it's like everything is aspecting Neptune, all the inner planets moving on. So it's interesting. So I wonder what things may come to light during that time.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it will be interesting. And two, I think sometimes events happen that are maybe not. Let me phrase this really carefully. I think sometimes too, events happen that end up not being what we think they are at the time. I think that's another Sun square Neptune thing. Is there's a degree of cloudiness or fogginess as to what really happened, and we don't really know until later on, like really what happened.
That's a good point. So sometimes you're not aware of it until you look retroactively, and it comes to light then. That makes sense. So when we move on to June 21st, is that the equinox, the 21st this year, or is it the 20th? I don't actually know.
It's the 20th. That's the sun entering Cancer. There was the 20th.
Oh yeah, duh, of course. Yeah, so that on the 20th we're moving in. We're moving why did I see equinox? It's funny. It's a solstice. So that's it. We're
June 20th is the first day of summer.
Yes. I look forward to that day only because I know that shortly fall is coming. Because it is so hot in South Florida, then I want to escape. I'm actually probably going to escape up north for a little while in June. But yeah, on the 21st, we have Mercury making a sextile to Mars, and that's Taurus, Cancer. And then we have the wonderful full moon in Capricorn. Wow. The full moon in Capricorn happens at 1 degree Capricorn. Interesting. So Mercury sextile Mars, I think that's thinking about your thoughts kind of being inflamed, your thoughts being energetic. It's not like you need more energy to your thoughts, but as these planets are kind of in signs that aren't necessarily, as quick thinking as like fire and air, maybe because it's water and earth, there is an energy of a spark of energy with it that comes to, something might change. And then the full moon. So what are you feeling about June 21st?
Yeah. So the sun's newly into Cancer, and then we have Mercury sextile Mars. So um, Mercury is able to me, that's using your mind to, uh, benefit Mars action. So to me, that's like if you have a bunch of errands to run, Mercury sextile Mars, I think, is a good aspect to, or if you have like a bunch of chores or things to do or things like that. I think having Mercury sextile Mars lets your mind and body work well together.
Yeah,
And then
that's a good point.
what we got, like 9 hours, 8.5 hours until the full moon. So your energy level should be pretty high for that whole day because the full moon's not until the evening. And still, having that Mercury sextile Mars, for a few handful of days on either side of the exact there, mixed with the full moon. I mean, that should be a high energy day. I mean, too, Mercury and Taurus and Sun, or Mars and Taurus, and Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Cancer, those are all going to be food related. So, like, I know that I'm going to want to have good food that day because that's all the Cancer and Taurus transits are all good food transits for me. So I try to make sure that I get stuff that I want when there's transits like that happening.
What kind of things do you feel during, or do you sense during the full moon? Do they all have a similar kind of energy that they bring to the table, or are they all different? Do you notice that them just being different?
I noticed there's I think there's a building of energy, but I think it depends on, like, some of the, like the two Gemini Sag full moons, the one with Sun in Gemini, Moon in Sag, and the one with Sun in Sag, Moon in Gemini. I know that's going to be like mental stuff for me. Like I'm very mentally. My challenges are mental on those ones. The it kind of, I think it depends on how your chart is, as because like some of them like don't do that much for me. Like the Leo Aquarius ones, like you would probably feel a lot more than I would. Because I don't really have anything. I mean, my part of fortune's in Aquarius, but I don't really have anything in those two signs, so I don't get that much bump from those unless they're at like the super low degrees and they square my Scorpio Taurus planets. But for the most part, I mean, I think I feel the Earth and water full moons more than the air and fire ones. But that's kind of like because of how my chart is set up. I find and like the Taurus Scorpio full moons always feel bigger and more intense to me than a lot of the others. But those hit in my chart a lot more than. So I think it kind of depends on
your own chart.
Yeah, like which ones are hitting in your chart, I think.
Yeah, that does make sense. Of course, it's more intense if it's in your own personal chart. Yeah. I didn't even notice that it was a full moon. I didn't even notice like in the sky till I actually saw that it was a full moon. What day was that? The 23rd. So it was like a week ago. But I felt like there was a lot of stuff going on, like, energetically and working with clients and stuff. It felt like one of those days where I couldn't put out the fires quick enough, if that makes sense. I'm just trying to think, and that wasn't Taurus. What full moon? That was Aquarius, right? Was that Aquarius? full moon. No, that's not. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
That full moon last month on the 23rd was. Why am I drawing a blank?
It would have been on the. Let me see.
On the 23rd. Yeah, that would have been.
It was at 3 Gemini Sag.
I like scribbled it out on my calendar so I couldn't see it as a 3 Sag. Okay, so that was a Sagittarius full moon. Yeah, it just felt like lots of things were going on, and I didn't know that it was a full moon. I looked in the sky. I was like, wait, the moon is full, and then I went and looked and saw that the moon was full, but it wasn't necessarily things that were going on with me. I felt peaceful, but everybody around me seemed like they were scattered and just like what, and that's what made me, kind of go, oh, wow, the full moon is going on. Sometimes I don't really notice it, but I notice it in other people. So that's interesting how you said, it depends on what's going on in your chart. You might not be feeling it, but the other people do. So that definitely was my perception last month. Yeah, I don't know where my brain was on that one. Not being able to know what moon it was. But yeah, okay. So full moon is going to be interesting on the 21st. And then we get a couple days where we don't have a whole lot going on. And then we move on to the 26th. The 26th, Venus makes a square to the nodes. And then Mercury trines to Saturn. So Venus squaring the nodes. What does Venus squaring the nodes mean?
Okay, so the nodes are called the moon's nodes or the lunar nodes, and this is a much bigger discussion. Every planet has nodes,
right?
And that's probably a 30-hour discussion.
Yeah.
So when you see on my Facebook wall or whatever, when I'm talking about the nodes, I'm talking about the north and south node of the moon.
Do you use the true or the mean nodes? I generally use the true node myself.
So this is,
I know, a contentious discussion.
This is one of those things where I had it wrong the first time, and I cemented it into my brain, and once I figured out I was using the opposite of what I said, I say the wrong thing every time. Oh, goodness. So
leave it to me to ask a question.
The one that I use should be the mean node, I believe, is what I use. Because yes. So I have the mean node set up in my computer here in my Sirius software, and that is I believe that is what I use. I'm hesitant because I have misquoted myself so many times on this.
I'm looking at the 26th, which is the date we're talking about, and it looks like I use the true nodes, and I don't really know why that I use the true nodes other than that was what was told to me to use. I don't have like any experience using otherwise. But it could be that they're in the same place as the mean nodes. That does happen, but it is the true nodes are squaring to Venus on that day.
Yes, I believe.
I'm going to look at the mean node and see.
Yes. So I have also noticed that And
so they're only minutes apart. To be honest with you, I just looked at it, and they're only minutes apart during that time anyway. So
yes, that's why. Yes, that's why I have not abundantly been overly anal with the difference between them, because they're usually exceptionally close.
Right. So I knew that was often, but yeah. So anyway, go on with Venus making the square to the nodes.
Yeah. So regardless of what they're called, the aspect is going to be virtually the same. So when a planet is square the nodes, that energy is going to be more prevalent. So Venus things are going, when Venus is square the nodes, that means that like Venus is going to have more of the spotlight than it normally does. When Mars is square the nodes, there's going to be more anger, more violence. When Venus is square the nodes, there's more feel-gooderies. And with Sun, Mercury, Venus, all in Cancer at this point, those should all be beneficial, extra Cancer Venus energy. So that should be positive vibes, I think.
So it would be positive energy in the terms of wanting to put some energy towards what you want. So the nodes, when you think about the nodes in VA, what am I saying? When you think about the nodes in EA, evolutionary astrology, they are indicating energies of like where you were and where you're moving towards, right? Like,
yes, I look at the nodes as like road signs or guideposts. Mm-hmm. You almost always want to move towards your north node and away from your south node. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean ignore or neglect your south node, but when you're given, you'll find the universe gives you tons of opportunities in your life to make choices between the north node and the south node. Now, frequently the south node choice will feel more familiar and the north node choice will feel more awkward, but you're supposed to move towards the awkward and away from the thing that feels more comfortable. Because the north node wants to expand you towards growth and towards having expansion.
That makes sense. So putting Venus there is expanding towards, or like moving from where you were. I don't know. I'm trying to put Venus in the center. It's just a feeling of something good with it at the squaring to the nodes. It's a feeling of positive energy. I don't know. I guess I'm questioning how I would think of that in my own world.
Right. So like Venus square the nodes could be, setting, buying new things for your home, or trying new food dishes that you've not tried, expanding things that make you feel good. That didn't sound right. Yeah. So you want to move towards things that add to your enjoyment of your life.
So one more question on the nodes, and when we're thinking about planets, it just occurred to me. So when, for instance, Venus is moving, I think she's moving toward the North Node, if I'm not thinking about this incorrectly. Is there a difference when Venus or any planet is squaring the nodes and all of a sudden is going towards the North Node or towards the South Node? Because, you think about them. Is there a difference in that, in the energies, or is it more, because one of the things I like to do, and this is me and my thinking about things as cycles and patterns, coming up with my Mars return. So, the idea of it always strikes me to set about when I have a Mars return. I know I'm going off in a different direction, but just hear me out. When I have something like a Mars return, I think about what is my energy for the next 2 years? How am I going to process that and then measure it as I go through, right? So I have the squares and the opposition and the next return. And, I try to make an intention when I do that as like, here I am, here's my Mars return. I'm going to set an intention to put my energy on this the next 2 years, really focused in on it. And then, like I said, measure myself at those steps. Obviously, could do it with the soft aspects too, but I usually look at more of the hard aspects because I'm looking at the intensity of that planet moving through the zodiac. So when I'm thinking of from the same context, the nodes are opposite of each other. So Venus will sometimes be moving towards the North Node or sometimes away from it towards the South Node, depending on what side it is. So I wondered if there was a pattern of an evolution or change, if you will, when a planet is aspecting, the North Node then comes around and aspects the South Node. If you've noticed something like that, or maybe I'm just fantasizing about crazy stuff in my brain. Who knows?
I've not noticed So Venus would be moving towards the South Node.
Oh, it's moving towards the South Node now. Okay.
At that time period, in mid-June there, late June, Venus will be moving towards the South Node and away from the North Node. I cannot say that I've studied if there's a difference between which node Venus is moving towards. I can't say that I've studied enough to notice if there's a
difference like that. Yeah. No, there's just something that crossed my mind because the nodes are fascinating to me. I don't have as much knowledge about them as you do. So, and they're always interesting to me to ask questions about. And so, yeah. Okay. So we talked about June 26th, and then we move on to June 29th. We have a few things going on June 29th. We have Venus sextile Mars and Saturn making station retrograde and Mercury sextile Uranus. That sounds like an interesting and lively day. Venus sextile Mars. What are you feeling about all the June 29th there?
With Venus and Mercury both Venus is sextile Mars, Mercury is sextile Uranus. Okay, so those are the two minor aspects that day. At this point, everything is the Saturn stationing and Neptune stationing are overwhelming everything else. So Venus sextile Mars is going to be, the energy flow, like looking at that, the energy flow should be good. You should be able to, be doing things that you enjoy, taking care of your lists. Mercury sextile Uranus is going to be, that's kind of flashes of insight or, flashes of brilliance or, good ideas that kind of pop out of nowhere. Because Mercury is the lower octave of Uranus. So having Mercury sextile Uranus, your frontal lobe is going to be able to tap into the collective unconscious, so that you can get you can figure out problems you've been stuck on for a long time, and things like make adjustments easy. Like Mercury sextile Uranus is a great, like if you have to get your computer repaired or something, like that's a great aspect to do it. Or if you have to, travel or go stand in line somewhere, like Mercury sextile Uranus, like if you have to go like get your driver's license renewed, or something, get some crazy license from some government agency, like that's when you like walk in and like there's a teller's line that's just opened. Like that's kind of that, like that's what a normie would call good luck. It's Mercury sextile Uranus, but that's what the person who doesn't speak astrology, that's when they would say, oh, I had a lucky day, or I had good luck. That's what that would, astrologically, that's what that is.
Yeah, I would think the Mercury sextile Uranus also might not be conducive to the best sleep in the world, because there's that the mind is going, yeah. Right? I mean, that's what I would think, and that happens at nighttime too. So what about Saturn? Saturn station retrograde. I mean, that happens in the middle of the day. What have you observed that's happened or on Saturn station retrograde times? Like, I know you pay attention to that.
Yeah. So any kind of Saturn station, you're going to feel more serious, usually probably more somber, but you're going to feel more grounded also. Now that's normally what it is. Saturn stationing in Pisces has a different flavor to it. So to me, Saturn stationing in Pisces is going to be, finding ways to bring your spiritual path, your spiritual mind into your 3D reality. Because like one of my problems, one of my issues is I have 8 million ideas, but I have problems getting them into the 3D format to share everything that's in my brain with people. Not to mention that would be really scary for everyone if I could share everything that was in my head. That aside, to me, the Saturn stationing allows you to kind of, in Pisces, it allows you to kind of bring that stuff into your 3D reality. Also, you might feel more subdued or more somber, but you're probably also going to, if you can harness that energy, you're going to be able to do a lot more good for your 3D reality than on most other days. And again, when an outer planet stations, especially, you've got a week on either side. So you're going to feel this energy from whatever, June 22nd to July, 5th or whatever, at least that long. But this is just the exact here. So that's a time to put plans into place, things like that. It is a good thing to do on Saturn stations. And it allows you to kind of, it's a good time for like weeding out things that are no longer, what situations in my life are not helping me and things like that. It's a good time to make, decisions that would maybe be difficult at other times or things like that.
Yeah. And would you say that's true for the whole retrograde cycle of Saturn, or just more intensely during the station?
Probably for the whole cycle, but definitely more intensely around the stations.
Yeah.
Also, just another thing with like Saturn and Pisces, is that's a really good time for creativity. Like music really thrives with Saturn and Pisces. Like I've got a lot of friends who are musicians, and I've got a large database of musicians' birthdays. And there's really a lot of them that have Saturn and Pisces. That's really there seems to be a bump up, a significant bump up of people who have Saturn and Pisces that are like musicians and stuff.
I guess that's like maybe they're bringing the tangible, which is not really tangible, but that makes sense because it's Pisces for some reason, into reality. Like, you know, that's the Saturn Pisces energy. I don't know. That's interesting.
Right. And the thing too about music, I mean, music doesn't really exist. Like music only exists in somebody's brain. Like you can't go into a field and pick music, or you can't grow a music tree. So when I spent way too many hours thinking about this stuff. It's like when you think about like even if you have like a CD or an album or something, like that literally came out of nowhere. Like those notes and the order that those songs were put on the CD and stuff, that all came like from somebody's brain just out of nowhere. Like they just started making up tunes and writing lyrics and things like that. And like, you know, any CD you have like a year before then, like that didn't exist. Like somebody tapped into their imagination and came up with that order of notes and the tunes and the lyrics, and turned that into a 3D thing that started as just vast nothingness in the void. But somebody turned that into yeah, no, you can like injure your own brain thinking about it. Or other people's brain. You can hurt other people's brains too.
I have a brain injury.
Yeah. But yeah, you can like. It's really amazing how when you think about it, not enough to hurt yourself, but yeah, how like an album or something. How an album comes to be. You know, somebody just starts thinking up stuff and jotting down notes and stuff, and then they get all the other people in the band or studio musicians or whatever they have, and they put that piece of music together. Then you have a CD or an album is a snapshot of a moment in time that was created in some crazy person's head.
And you think about people like Beethoven. Wasn't he deaf? Beethoven was deaf or something. I think that was right. Or tone deaf or something. And he did all that. I think he was. He did all that really literally in his mind. Yeah, kind of crazy. Wow.
Was it?
So I mean, and what's that?
Wasn't he? I'm trying to remember. Oops.
Yeah. Oh, he lost hearing. Okay.
Oh, goodness. Okay, he was a Sagittarius. 12/16. However, he had Chiron in Pisces. For some reason, I thought he had Saturn and Pisces, but he did not. I was going to use that to bolster my point, but it was for naught. Anyways.
Well, not that particular one. So that winds up the aspects going on for June, but we're going to mention it here today because this is something that goes on and it is relevant. In July, on July 2nd, we have Neptune making its station retrograde at 29 Pisces. So, gosh, what are you feeling about a Neptune station retrograde? What would we expect to, or, kind of feel, especially at that 29th degree?
Right. So we've, again, this is a first for everyone. No one alive now has been alive with Neptune stationing at 29 degrees of Pisces. So, yeah. Again, 29 Pisces is just weird. It just is. So normally the being that this is going to be spot near exact on my sun, like within minutes of being exact on my sun. So Neptune is your intuition. This whole period, especially with Saturn stationing a few days before, that tends to slow things down also, because Saturn rules time, and time constructs and everything, and kind of how our 3D reality is set up. So having Saturn and Neptune stationed that close together, it means these two stations are going to bleed into each other.
Mm-hmm.
Neptune at 29 Pisces is very loosely attached to our 3D reality. Our 3D reality is only a rumor to 29 Pisces. So I can assure you that within this time period here, especially because there's nothing out, like, I think Mars is in Taurus at this point, and there's a bunch of, all the inners are in Cancer, except for the moon for most of it. So there's not a lot of harshities mixed in with this. So this whole period is going to be very dreamlike, very, people are not going to be in their bodies. You're not going to be able to tell if you're awake or if you're dreaming. Things are going to be, it is very easy for people and animals to cross over to the other side when Neptune stations. Especially, I'm going to guess, especially with Neptune stationing at 29 Pisces. Keep a close eye on your animals. Keep a close eye on any family members or whatever that need help. It's very easy. It's just very easy to slip out of your skin suit when anything in Pisces is stationing at any degree, but particularly with Neptune at 29 Pisces. It's just, reality will feel like a myth at this time. There's just and with Saturn, Saturn stationing in Pisces, it kind of means like time isn't really going to exist. It's going to feel like I'm sure you're going to hear these phrases more so than normal. It's like, gee, I didn't realize what time it was. I didn't realize what day it was. I didn't realize how late it had gotten. I didn't realize it was time to get up. Or like, time is going to feel very askew, and our reality is going to feel very odd. So like, this is not a time to be doing like overly complicated stuff. Like, this is definitely a time to be like working on your meditation skills or your psychic skills, or you know, trying to see things outside of our reality. That's what this energy is going to lend itself to. Trying to be over calculating and making big decisions and stuff, it is probably a bad idea at this point. Um, Also, to just like over, like something that's happened too um, since like Neptune hit 29 Pisces. Like I'm having a hard time. Like I don't realize like how, like I can go really long periods without eating or drinking, but then like when I start, then like I don't want to stop. Like there's no boundaries to anything. Like everything is very free flowing, and if you can get that to work to your advantage, that it can be super beneficial. But like too, like like once you, it's very easy to just slip into something and start doing it and like lose track of awareness and lose track of time. um and that's kind of the natural state of, so my son is at 29 Pisces, so I've had 50 some years study of this. So like for my, sometimes to my benefit, sometimes not to my benefit. One of the things of 29 Pisces is I can easily slip in and out of things, like if I can get myself into a calm state, I can sit and study something for hours and hours and and not even be aware of surroundings or anything. And I don't think that most people have that ability. I used to I used to think I was just like, but like I don't know that people can do that. Most people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know for certain,
It's
but I get that
right.
I'm starting to think that, I mean, I understand that some of this is subjective, but it's just something that I've tried to explain to people and they have no idea what I'm talking about. So that's where I've kind of gotten the feeling that maybe this is like a super secret squirrel 29 Pisces, uh, you know, superhero power or something. It can
A
also be very
superhero.
detrimental to where you can like right, you can lose track of shit like when you don't want to be. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, it can be, there are times where I can just very easily slip in and out of like consciousness. Like I can focus on minutia and details that like other people don't appear to be able to see at
That's
time.
interesting.
I realize this sounds batshit crazy. I'm just trying to give you a heads up as to what's coming. The weird, like weird is just a something that I've just always been comfortable with. So, and I try to delve into the weird things that a lot of people try to avoid, and I don't like I've never been like a much of a drug user or anything like that, just because like I'm already kind of very loosely attached to this reality. So I've not I've been too
Not needed
afraid.
it.
Yeah, I've been too afraid to do much of anything that would like, yeah, like to even experiment or anything, because I'm already like, it's already hard enough getting back into my body most mornings. I don't need too, too much of any kind of hard substance to get out
So
of
like,
my body. It's kind of my natural state to be out of my body. The trick is like getting into my body
back
and
in,
like,
right?
yes. Getting out's not the problem. Getting back in is the problem.
Yeah, I have Saturn at 29 Gemini. So I have the Neptune is making that square to Saturn and my moon, because my moon is at like 1 degree of Capricorn. Well, almost one. It's 0 to 59, so 1 minute from one. So there's that, the energy of Neptune triggering both of the moon and Saturn for me. So, and I think that's at 29 degrees. I think that's an interesting way to put it, and like not being in your body and things are a little bit weird. I think I've been struggling with that a little bit too. Like, and not struggling isn't the right word, but dealing with like feeling the contrast between the what's up in the mind and the unknown, the unseen, and the contrast of the physical 3D. And I think that's a Saturn and Neptune playing in my chart. So that's interesting. Yeah.
And another heads up for people I wanted to mention too is, so again, maybe I don't know if this is just me or whatever, but definitely for the last month, like since Neptune's been at 29 Pisces, like my hearing has like exponentially improved. Like I can hear things like much further away than I used to, and like they sound like they're up close. The only problem is maybe I can't tell like exactly how far some things are away at times, but like my hearing, like my auditory stuff and my intuition and things like that are just like really like at a crazy level right now.
Very interesting. Yeah, I was looking to see if if Neptune was hitting anything like with Mercury, but in your chart, I don't see it. But that is an interesting thing that's going on. But Mercury is opposite right now. Mercury is opposite of your Neptune. So I mean, but Mercury moves fast.
When Neptune, whatever, 10 years ago, something like that, when Neptune had recently entered Pisces, like 2014, 2015, something like that, when Neptune had stationed on my Mercury, which is at 5 Pisces, I had the trippiest, I've never had experiences like this. I had the trippiest, craziest stuff happening.
Really?
Right. Yeah, it was weird. Like I know there's once or twice I thought for sure I was dying. I was seeing odds and ends. Like I was getting like a life review or I don't know what you would call it. I was just seeing all kinds of things from I'm like, oh shit, I'm dying. I mean, obviously I didn't, but I was like, what is going on? What is happening in clown world?
Wow. Yeah, I just looked. That's like the 2013 and 2014. It had a bunch of hits, obviously, because Neptune moves back and forth. But yeah, you had a lot of things. Did you come to awarenesses that you weren't? That you weren't privy to knowing before that? Yeah, like an awakening of sorts in the mind.
Yeah.
Awakening. Yep. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah, I remember what we were talking about when Neptune went into Pisces. It was the pink fluffy clouds. We were talking about that. Yeah.
That's another thing too, is like I would not make any big decisions around the Neptune, because like the the thinking's great for like, you know, trying to talk to aliens or Bigfoots or stuff, but like for like making big like 3D decisions and stuff, that is bad energy for making big life choices. End of June, early July, bad energy for that. Like, even though I know I said normally the Saturn stuff is good for making, like, having the Neptune mixed in there kind of overrides that. So just to clarify, when I was talking about the Saturn stations being good for, you know, finalizing things and making decisions, this Neptune station being so close kind of wipes that out. I was just kind of referring to normal Saturn stations. This one is weird because both of these are stationing in Pisces within a few days of each other. Give yourself time. If you have to make big decisions during that time, build in some time where you have time to think about it and to let your subconscious work on it, so that you don't, you know, sell your house for $4 on eBay or something, you know. I mean,
oh my gosh, like, please don't do that. Ugh, please don't do that. Oh wow, yeah. Interesting. Well, this was fun. This will be an interesting June for us, and we'll see what happens, what transpires, and hopefully you can stay in your body enough towards the end of it. When does Neptune move into Aries? Like, what is it? Do you know when that happens? Because I know it's retrograde. I don't know how many degrees it goes back.
I think next year we get. So yeah, this is the thing where Saturn and Neptune both are going to station multiple times on either side of Pisces and Aries. So Neptune goes into Aries March 30th of next year. And then
March
late
30th?
October, March 30th of next year. Late October of next year, it retrogrades back into Pisces. And that will be our last dip. The last of Neptune and Pisces is like October 22nd of 2025 to January 26th of 2026.
It's kind of blows my mind to think about it. It wasn't when we were first doing recordings like this, but we were talking about Neptune moving into Aquarius. It feels like yesterday sometimes, but it also feels like 2 lifetimes ago.
Yeah.
And then now we're like, if I really think about it, I'm like, holy crap, a lot has happened in those, 14 years or whatever, 12 years. I don't know exactly how many years. And it depends because it's multiple times. And now it's moving forward into Aries. I mean, coming soon.
And just another weird thing with that is that during that period of Neptune at 29 Pisces, for part of that anyways, Uranus and Pluto are in an exact trine at, like, Uranus will be at 0-1 Gemini and Pluto will be at 1 Aquarius. So Uranus and Pluto will be forming an exact trine in air signs for part of that period, with Neptune at the last stops of Neptune at 29 Pisces.
Wow. Well, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah, no, we're in a new reality. We're in a new reality at that point. And Saturn has moves back into the very end of Pisces during that time period also for its last stay in Pisces. The last like 3 months and first couple months of 2025, 2026 are really freaky trippy.
Yeah, and that's crazy to think about because I don't know, Pluto and Uranus kind of scare me a little bit together.
Yeah.
They can be a little bit daunting, cause havoc.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I agree.
Well, this was fun. So we're going to be doing July towards the end of June. But yeah, I guess this was good. We'll wrap up for today. And thanks, of course, Mark, for being with me as always. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.